All right, welcome to Wealth Cartel Legends, where we talk about how hindsight is a motherfucker.
Our mission, guys, is to stop people saying, I wish I had listened, and to help people to capitalise on everyone else's mistakes before making them yourself.
Yeah, in summary, our tagline says it all. Turn our hindsight into your foresight so you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did.
That's a $20 fucking glass of scotch because they wouldn't let us have a shot. We're actually at Bella Vista Hotel, guys, by the way. We should give them a shout out there.
Posted, we do tag them, yeah. Bella Vista Hotel shout out. We should put in our intro, actually.
Yeah, they're letting us record in here for free. We need to fix the lighting, but other than that, we're pretty good.
All right, welcome, guys, to what is this? Episode 8, I think. Episode 6 of the Wealth Cartel podcast. We're doing a little bit differently today. Our guest, Lauren Peters. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, how you going?
Hello.
So Loz is up in the beautiful sunny coast, runs her business remotely. So this is the first remote one we're doing, so we don't have the weird headphones and stuff on today. We'll see how it goes. But to intro Loz, so Lauren is an Arbonne extraordinaire. She's the MVP for Australia, or one of the MVPs for Australia. She's a mother of 3, all-round straight hustler and a good chick who's come up with her fair share of struggles. So we thought it'd be a good bit of diversification to get Loz on today. She's a bit of the epitome of success for most mothers out there and women in general. And we like to change it up from men to women. And I think there's taking it away from the streets for a minute, getting away. There are hustles out, there are struggles outside of the streets. So Loz is going to do our fair share of that and appeal to a few more people on that. So welcome, Loz. How are you?
Yay, I'm fabulous. How are you?
Yeah, well.
Good, tired.
Good.
He's complaining already. We just this is how the podcast goes. I talk and Acco complains.
Yeah, and we work well together.
Yeah, bounce off each other well. So, Loz, let's give you a bit of an intro. Do you mind introing yourself for everyone here? Let everyone know who you are.
Amazing. So like you said, my name's Lauren Peters. I have a very successful online health and wellness business with Arbonne, and have been fortunate enough to grow that to basically the top level, which is really cool. So I've been doing that for 5 years. I have 3 young kids, so 6, 2 and 1. So life's crazy. Yeah, I'm busy. I have been a single mom for quite some time, but I've recently found someone, which is amazing. So in love, and yeah, just happy, but definitely have kind of had struggles the last couple of years.
He's a full-blown rig.
I bet he is.
He's a rig. He's like an Aussie's version of Paul Walker, but
he's a fisherman
and shit.
So they're different. They're made different, those spear fishermen. I'm telling you, jump in the water and just know you're going attacking big predators. That's not
in their habitat.
He just bought like a big spear gun to spearfish marlin, so he's very excited about going and getting very big fish. I know.
No way in the world. When we were in the Cook Islands, you can fish, and there's like people right off to the side of you that spear, and there were sharks everywhere off the boat, like attacking our fish. Like we're pulling fish in, and the sharks are hitting our fish, and these dudes, like they're down there spearing while the sharks are. I'm like, not for me. No way in the world.
Yeah, I think they see sharks most times they're out. Like it's just normal for them to.
Well, that's where they'll come up. That's where they live. Like they go out chasing the big things that sharks eat. They're trying to catch the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially at the moment because whales are around. It's like whale season, which means the whites kind of follow the whales and try and eat the baby ones. So there's lots of whites around.
Yeah, you can't be casually calling them whites, like just whites. You mean this?
Yeah, just casual. I try not to think about it, but yeah, it's full on.
That's crazy, man.
So I learned a bit about you the other day, Loz. So the next step, just tell us a bit about where you're from, where your life sort of transitioned and how you grew up, whereabouts, what it was like, and then we'll get into the mindset stuff after that.
Yeah, cool. So I grew up in the Snowy Mountains in New South Wales, actually. So in a very small town called Berrydale, which is kind of between like Coomera and Jindabyne. If anyone knows, like Jindian's kind of been up the snow, which I hated it at the time, like growing up in a small town. I thought it was like a hole. But looking back, I think that, it was an amazing place to grow up, and it was a good community as well. But yeah, so went to school down there. Got to go like school skiing for sport. Yeah, so that was good. Moved to Canberra when I was basically out of school, kind of headed to Canberra, which is kind of what people did just for like work. So got a job in kind of like the health systems, working for a hospital. Then I worked for a law firm. Then I met my daughter's dad, Mackenzie's dad. So he was in the army with Ryan, actually. It's kind of how we know each other, weird thing. And moved to Townsville. So I was 19, fell in love and like literally moved across the country. Like he lived in Townsville, so we were kind of doing this long distance relationship. We'd met like a couple of times and I moved to Townsville. Looking back, was crazy. I think my mum was having a heart attack. But yeah, and I actually really like Townsville as much as people like, oh, that's my dog. As much as people pay it out, like I enjoyed it, just like laid back. So worked at a law firm. Worked at a law firm downtown in Townsville. What's that?
Rather Townsville than Canberra. I'm actually leaving straight from here to go to Canberra.
Oh, Canberra's
studio down there.
I don't know, like I would never live in Canberra now. There's literally nothing to do there. Like it's very public service. Like I don't know.
It's Peter and Picasso now, Loz.
Yeah.
That's why we're going
What's
there.
that?
Peter and Picasso now in Belconnen.
His business.
That's my business. So we're opening up tomorrow night. Oh, it's Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
This is Loz's
cool.
podcast, not yours. Stop plugging your own business.
Sorry.
I mean, I still have a lot of my business down there because obviously I live there and kind of that's how I'm connected with a lot of people. So I would love to go back and like catch up with people. And I really enjoyed it when I was there. But I think looking back, like, because I live on the Sunshine Coast now, so I've been here, there and everywhere. But being close to the beach and the sunny coast, like it's my jam. Like the Sunshine Coast, I just would never leave here. It's just so beautiful here. I just can't imagine living somewhere that's not on the beach.
Give me a sec.
That bad, you reckon?
It just keeps getting worse.
You're supposed to stick it in your gum. You're not supposed to keep chewing it, you
I know,
spanner.
right. But I'm chewing
It's like tobacco, chew
It tastes
tobacco.
like I'm chewing a cigarette.
All right, so do you want to tell us a bit about what it was like growing up, Loz? So maybe not so much the lessons and stuff, but just sort of, how did you go? How did your family grow up down there? Were you, were you quite privileged or not? How did that shape you as a person, kind of thing? And how did you transition through that to where you are now?
Yeah. My parents definitely weren't like rolling in money, but we didn't struggle. Like I don't remember really going without as a kid. We were comfortable. We got to live a really good life. Like dad was a manager of a plumbing suppliers and mum started like a business and bought into another business. So they were hard workers. I think, I did see them working really hard as I grew up and working hard to give us girls everything. I have 2 other sisters. So growing up with a house full of girls was challenging. I remember just thinking I've got to get out of here. And my sisters are younger than me, so they were just like super annoying. But yeah, it was good. We got to camp every year. Like we were kids, we didn't have big pressures of like having to kind of be a certain thing. I think mum did well protecting us from social media, it wasn't really a thing back then, but living in a small town, we were like just ferals, which I think looking back, like appreciate that childhood a lot, camping and just being really grounded. Yeah, so definitely there was, I don't have a struggle. My childhood my parents were amazing. Like I don't have any story like that, but I think looking back, like.
You did come from a small town, so that was, for you to go, even just simply going from a small town to where you are now is a bit, that's a big difference, big change.
I think the biggest thing for me, like with the Wealth Cartel, like the thing that I'm learning is, one of us might have a struggle, one of us might not. Ultimately, it's a struggle to make you, like if you've had a really good upbringing and a really good life, it's a different struggle in itself to then go out on your own and venture out and do your own thing, because it is so easy to fall into the trap of, oh, well, I've always had everything, I can just continue to have that. And I think the mindset, regardless of whether you've had nothing or everything or in between, the mindset still has to be the same to continue progressing once you're an adult.
Yeah, I think it's a good diversity too. Like having, we've got a few guys that grew up hard, like grew up from the areas that we grew up and stuff like that. But the thing I love is the struggle's the same for whether someone was privileged or not, because you've still got to make so life's a fucking struggle on its own. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's amazing to see the lessons that people pull and the traits that they're pulling, whether they were privileged or not, are very similar. You know, you just maybe
when you're given everything, it's actually harder to then go and do it yourself because you haven't learned how to hustle. You haven't learned
unless you're given everything and then you listen to Wealth Cartel podcast and you put a lesson while you've got everything.
That's a good one. That's a good little. Yeah, I've got a couple of friends, you know, similar to you, where they've had that upbringing where it wasn't so much of a struggle, and we've spoken about it as well. Our parents did a really good job in bringing us up. That didn't mean they didn't struggle, and I think the key for me moving forward, the more people that I speak to in regards to the same thing, ultimately success is driven by the same mindset. And people who want to succeed, as opposed to people who want to make money, or people, you know, with me, I don't look back into my childhood days and go, oh, well, that's why I'm successful. I'm successful because I just wanted to be me, and I wanted to go out and get it. And like, I'm sure you're the same. It didn't matter what mum and dad did and where you come from or how good you had it. At the end of the day, you want to make it for yourself, and you want to be able to let everyone know, like, this is me and not what someone else said about me. Like, growing up in the West, everyone thinks, like with me, I know for a fact, like, you know, people, they think less of you growing up, or they think you can't do it. So for me, that was more of a drive. And then with you, it's like, oh, well, you know, Loz has always been given everything, and your mindset's going, well, I don't want to be that. I want to go get my own thing. And I feel like you meet in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean?
mean?
The victims are use the same thing, you know what I mean? Like, how many people do they use, you know, same as if you had someone privileged using that as an excuse versus someone from the West who uses that as an excuse to not succeed. It's the same mindset.
Excuses are the same.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And anyone who shows this trait is they want to do it for themselves. They want to take control.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I really like this. Is a really good chat. Really good. Really good. Really switched up for people. So, what I want to know, the next step is about when. When did your mindset shift? Now, for you, I think that's more so. When did like Townsville? So, my wife Gemma, Loz friends with Gemma. She knows Gem. Grew up in Townsville. That's a small town as well, essentially. And you see, the big mindset shift is people leaving that small town, taking that small town. Because, you know, you said you weren't rolling your money, but you had a good upbringing. It's easy to do in a small town because there's not a lot. Like, you can live a lot of people move there to be able to earn less to live a better life, you know, because it's much cruisier. What was the mindset shift that took you? Because it's quite amazing seeing, like, anyone who knows Berrydale, like, I just came back from the snow and we drive through Berrydale every year. We go to the snow and it's like 4 shops. Like, it's a small town. Like, and it's amazing to see you take from that. Now you're living up on the sunny coast and you live a good life, Loz. Like, full preface here that Loz is a client of mine, so I'm going to keep raising her up. But you live a good life now. What was the mindset shift to take you from sort of taking that into hustling? Like, you're on the long end of hustle. You're not like, I'm hustling just to get by. You're hustling, you're doing well. What's the mindset shift? What are the lessons you learned, or what changed you to get you to there?
Yeah. I think for me, there's certainly not just one thing that just was like this pivot, but I always knew that I wanted to get out of that area. Like, I just was like, I'm done with this. And, you know, it's just, I'm not like a farmer. I'm not like country hick, you know. So it was like, it was not my jam. I was like, I need to go. I
was more farmer wants a wife than farmer.
Husband.
No way. I guess shut up. So we used to go to Canberra a lot to go shopping, like for clothes and stuff, because you can't really get clothes down where we're like, it's a snowy clothes shop. So I think just like exposure to like other places, you know, being able to travel. Like we were talking the other day, I went on a cruise ship when I was 17 and met some of Ryan's friends actually on the cruise. Met some characters.
I've never been on a cruise.
The country
But what like meeting, I met some girls from America and stuff. I think I was like, oh, there's, you know, I guess as you grow up and you get exposed, you're like, oh, there's the world outside of this small town. And, you know, I was lucky enough to like, I wanted to experience that. So I think, you know, it was never a question that I was going to leave. that place. Like I just knew. And mum, I think from I was about 18, 19, as soon as I started working, mum didn't pay for anything. I like paid for my car, paid for my phone. Like I did not have a leg up at all. Like I was straight into the workforce, and I love that. Like I was like, I just want to be independent. Mum, it wasn't actually.
That's really important, Loz. Hey, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Same.
I paid board $50 a week from the time I was 15. I was working at KFC.
Yeah.
And then as my wage increased, my board increased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mum wasn't smart enough to do it percentage wise, so she used to just add $50 on top. And I'm like, I'm not earning double the money. How am I paying double the rent? But
It got to a point where you were.
I was paying half the rent.
Yeah.
But honestly, like that to me now, back then I hated it back then. And then my sisters got off a little bit easier. My sisters did pay money, but they were, my sisters were a little bit different to me in the sense that I don't know how to explain it. I feel like it was very different me growing up to my sisters, whereas I paid and the girls are like, oh, if I've got it, I'll pay you. But we all sort of come out okay. I think that enforced board or that enforced rent, at the time you hate it, and most people go, oh, well, if your mum's got the money, then that's what.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree. I think
mum used to do the same, but mum, this is me. So I've been working since about 13, and I used to hustle, and I didn't go to schoolies because I wanted to take everyone else's shifts, so I earned all the coin, right? And I go, and I remember I moved out of home at like 17 or something like that.
Twice.
Yeah, you would. I moved out of home at like 17, right? Because I went in and mum was charging me $50 a week board, and she also gave me a loan for my first car. And I had enough cash to pay, and I was like, I want to pay. And she's like, I'd walk in with like $3,000 in cash. I was like, Mum, take me money. And she was like, no. She's like, no, you'll pay me $50 a week every week. And I was just like, fuck, I can't cop this. Like, and it was just a responsibility lesson, and stuff like that's really good.
I had a mate. This is a good one actually. His dad took board from him from the time he was 14, 9 months until the time he was, I think 18, maybe 21, mate, 18 or 21, and then he took the money, and then what he would do is he would charge expenses for electricity, and he'd charge all this stuff. My mate was hating it for years. He was like, no, he doubled it. So he had saved his entire amount of money, and then he doubled that. And then my mate bought at 19. It was 18 because he bought his first house at 19 based off of that saving.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, it taught him at the same time as being able to help him.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that capacity. Like the extra $50 helped my mum. I remember it helped my mum. Like some nights I'd give her the 50 in advance so that we could eat.
Yeah.
Like I knew that, but I did that, just the inkling of knowing you had to pay someone and that life wasn't free, regardless of whether it was $10 or $100, changed. Because from that time on, I moved out. I lived in a unit by myself in Blacktown, and from that time on in, it didn't matter where I lived, I paid.
Yeah.
Like that's such an important point, I think.
Yeah.
So true. My sisters had it easy as well. Like I tell them, they know. What's that?
You're the eldest?
Yeah. So they, I think it was a bit of circumstance. Like mum, I moved out, and then mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. So while the girls were going through like HSC and stuff, so I think it was a bit of like guilt nearly. Mum was just trying to, I don't know. And so they got everything paid for, like health insurance, like car, phone. Then they both went to uni. So they did they went down a different path than me. I was like straight into work, and they were uni. So they were getting paid. I think their first year of like the board at uni was paid for and stuff. So like they definitely took longer. Like actually they didn't grow up as quick as what I did, getting thrown into workforce and stuff. They were like, just couldn't take on responsibilities, couldn't handle as much. They were calling mum more, like, and I love them, but I think they're okay now, but it was definitely such a different upbringing for them. I think it was kind of all a bit of guilt, a bit of like mum trying to just maybe hold on to them a bit longer. I didn't want them to kind of grow up.
I mean, the young, like you're the eldest?
I'm
the eldest. So we're all the eldest, and we all got the same story.
Yeah.
My sisters same thing.
I think they learn. The parents learn, Like
I think they just relax a bit too, like they just and they have regrets. Oh, I was a bit too hard here. I was a bit too hard there.
Because my second sister, she had a little, but I mean, she was so much more advanced than me than life way before. Like she bought her first. On it, she's the apple of the family. Like she's a gun.
Yeah.
She's so good. She's a school teacher. She's married to the dream. Like if you want your sister to marry someone, this is the dude.
She's not married to me. No.
But she just sort of took it another way. It's such an important thing because like I went one way, I was taught one way, and I went one way. She was taught another way. A different upbringing went complete separate, and we were brought up in the same household.
Yeah.
It just goes to show mindset.
It's,
you know?
it's strange. Like I say this in my household all the time. There's 3 of us, and we're all raised pretty much the exact same way. And 2 of us are very similar, and one's completely different. And it's just that's crazy. That's a great, people on your perspective and how you look at the way you're brought up. All right, so tell us, Loz. It's all like we said, how, why, and when, and that kind of stuff. How did you make the move? Like, what did you do? What were the steps you put in place
to move 3 days later?
and how did you actually do it? So for other people watching, want to whether it's up and out of the country life or whatever, how did you do it? What made you do it? Like, what made you do it, but how did you do it?
Yeah, obviously, like I did meet someone, so that I was still working and stuff. But I think a big shift for me was when I had my daughter Mackenzie. So I was 22, I was a young mum, but like it was all planned. I was like, I want kids. Like I just wanted that life. We'd bought a house, we'd got engaged and everything. So I had Mackenzie, and I guess like growing up, I always had this idea that like when I have children, I will get to stay home. I'll be a stay-home mom, like everything, I'll be able to stay home for like a minimum year, and everything's amazing. And when that didn't happen, like when I couldn't, I literally had to go back to work so we could afford to pay the mortgage and everything. It's kind of like a bit of a shock, because like, oh, it doesn't just happen, and made me really start to think like, so I was working full time for a travel agency at that time, like didn't hate what I did, but I guess I was just like, I'm not really going to be going anywhere with this 9 to 5 wage. Like I don't see anything changing. Like, and if I want to spend more time with Mackenzie and have that time with her as she's growing up, I need to do something different. And so that was kind of this moment where I started looking around for like how I could do something, like what could I do, and I was not smart at school. I did not apply myself in school. I hated school. So I was kind of like, well, I'm not, like, I didn't go to uni. I don't have any qualifications. Like, what the hell am I going to do that's going to actually get me this life that I want? And at the time, it was when I saw a girlfriend that I'd really only met once start her Arbonne business. She was a few months in. And I guess I'd heard of it before, but it made me kind of look at it differently. The fact that she was doing it, how she was running it, she was online, she wasn't salesy, she wasn't doing like parties and stuff, which is kind of like what I'd always thought Arbonne was. So it was all like timing. It was a bit of a coincidence that she started doing it, and I actually reached out to her and was like, can I, get a bit of information? Can I, ask what it is that you do? So I looked into it, and the rest is like history. I just kind of ticked all those boxes of like being able to create a life and create time, because I didn't want to commit to, and even now I'm very hesitant of like committing to something if it's going to take away all my time, because at the end of the day, time is the most precious commodity that we have. We don't get it back. Like money can come and go, but time for my children and that flexibility. So that was kind of like the how I stumbled across a vehicle to be able to create the life that I wanted.
Yeah, cool. And so looking back, we'll go into a bit of the hindsight and foresight stuff now. Looking back, what are some of the big things, the lessons you learned, or some of the things that you would have changed or maybe pivoted a bit differently to get to where you are a bit quicker? We're going to go into more detail into the money, there's that stuff, but just, is there any experiences or any significant points that you can think of that you would consider? And if you go back and tell yourself, obviously, you've had a few things that you'd probably tell yourself to steer away that you couldn't tell anyway, but what are some things that like maybe just lessons for other people as well that you could tell, pivot or be cautious of to pivot around?
Yeah. It's funny when you think about these though, because like they shape you into who you are, like all of the struggles, all the lessons. Like I'm not sure I'd actually change much, because it would, I've learned and grown so much as a person through the challenges, through the struggles, like that has made me who I am today and made me, so much stronger. But a couple of things. One, I think, especially now, especially in this day and age with technology and social media, and like the pressures that young people have on being a certain way, like looking a certain way, buying things to impress people, I think I look back and I'm like, you know, some of those things actually weren't the right thing for me. Like I wanted to impress. I wanted to do, like, you know, even just for example, like I was having this conversation the other day about weddings, right? I think people have big weddings sometimes because they think that's what they have to do. Like they see magazines and they want that dress and they think they have to have that ring and they have to have this day. And sometimes it doesn't actually bring that person joy. Like, do you really want to spend, you know, $70,000? Like, is that worth it? So I guess just looking back and really making decisions based on what brings me joy, what did I really truly want, you know, what aligns with me and my goals. If you think $70,000 for a wedding, you know, will bring you all the joy in the world, then do that. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I think looking back, like, yeah, there's so much pressure and
people think that they spend, if they buy or go into debt on everything, where there are only, like for our wedding, like we talked about this the other week, guys, like there were some things that spending the extra money did, but there was a million of things that going real cheap on didn't change our night at all, our day at all. And I think that people just think expensive wedding, great day, where you go, hang on, what's the part of that wedding that we can spend on that's going to bring us happiness?
I think it's just conscious of whether or not it's actually what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to do. Sometimes it's super hard. This is what we're trying to do, is just open people's mind and go, think about it. We're not saying don't, just think about it.
We're not saying don't have the 100K wedding. Just if that's not for you and you're doing it for Joe Blow, don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, like we got married. We spent quite a bit on our wedding, but I wouldn't change it for the world, because everything we did was thought about. It was like set up well. Like we spent I'm such an impulsive person. We spent massive money on our honeymoon, and I got in big shit. Like I walked into the place and I left, and then I called my wife and she was like, "How much was it?" And I go, anyway, it literally, I would not change it for the world. Once we had it and experienced it, I would never change it for the world, right? Other people might go, "Well, you spent whatever you spent on your wedding. That's ridiculous. I would never spend that." Well, that's all cool. But we thought about ours. I didn't just go and do it and then regret it. And I feel like the majority of people now, like, if you want the Louis Vuitton bag, like I'm a bad person to speak to about this, because I buy shit. I'm a buyer. Like, I'm a spender. But when I buy it, I say I'll buy it for my wife, and I'll never regret that. I'll regret buying it for me because I didn't need it, but I'll never regret buying it for her. Or I'll never regret buying it for my kids, because that's who I ultimately want to impress. And I don't buy it to impress you. You get what I mean? And I feel like that's the biggest issue at the moment, is everyone's so many people forget they're even in a relationship. They're so worried about what Instagram thinks of them or the world thinks of them, that they forget the person that sleeps next to them at night and they're married to, and they forget what you know, how they met or how they got together. And the dollar figure is nothing. It's the mindset more, which people have the trouble with, I think. You know? Yeah.
It's a very empty kind of, like, you're never going to be fulfilled if you're doing it for someone else, or to fit a certain mold, or to impress, or to get followers. Like, you're always going to be chasing that, and it's not.
There's some people get married or have kids just for the likes on Facebook and Instagram these days. I swear to it, like, just because they want a big post like.
Literally, like, it's crazy. I think it's just, finding yourself.
The influence, the people making money, like making it as a business, right? I don't generally have an issue with what they do. Like, I've worked with a lot of paid influencers before and a lot of online influencers. And my thing is, if you're going to be an influencer, influence. Don't like I worked with so many people who were like, "Yep, I'll take the handout, but you're not getting nothing back out of me." Like, I don't go and give you free shit because I want to. Like, I'm trying to present my brand, and ultimately the influencer becomes a better influencer by doing their job. People who are pretty and are just put up in G-strings and bras, they can only go so far. There are certain people online who are doing really well. There's a girl from the Central Coast called Mel Watts. She's a mummy blogger, and she's incredible. Like, the stuff she does, she puts out, like, my wife watches her. She makes the woman feel empowering. That's, to me, that's an influencer, right? If you're going to do that, no worries. But if you're going to post, you know, go share something about teeth whitening, for instance, but not share their shit. Take their free stuff but not share. You're not an influencer.
For that.
You know?
I think you touched on a good point before, but Loz, that we have, it's come up a few times, which is good, is it's hard to look back on yourself and go, what lessons do I want to chat? Why would I pivot? Because what happened to me built who I am today. So what we want to get across with that is a brilliant point, because we do go through that stuff. But the idea of what we want to try and pivot is saying to people, like opening people's minds to consider other people's experiences, to actually think about what's going to happen and whether they want to, go through those consequences before it happens. And I think that's a brilliant point, because all our hardships make us who we are. And people say, well, everyone should learn their own lessons, but it's just about opening people's minds to maybe not make some of those mistakes, not miss out on learning some hard lessons that they didn't have to learn. And I think a wedding's a great example. We're never saying don't do it. You guys are both clients, I never say to anyone, don't spend money on something that you like, but just make sure it's the thing that's going to make you the happiest before you do. And if it is, boom, pull the trigger.
We're becoming so clear now over the past 3 or 4 weeks of what majority of people that are starting to see success have. And it's a consciousness of what they're actually doing. So the major part of the last couple of podcasts has been every single person saying in different words that we are just conscious of what it is we do. We're conscious of what we spend, not because we don't want to spend it, but because that doesn't benefit me. And majority of people go, Charles Joyner, who we had on, he put it so simple. He said, for him, he's an athlete. And he said, if it makes my body feel good, I do it. And if it doesn't, I don't. And it was, I mean, it's an easy thing to say, but as a 25-year-old kid to say, I'm not going to drink anymore, I'm not going to party anymore because my body doesn't like it, but I am going to train and I am going to eat well because it does. Ultimately, if you just switch that up into business, relationships, lifestyle, whatever you did, money, anything you did, if you just listen to those conscious thoughts in your body, ultimately you fast track your whole life.
Yeah, that's right. And Loz, Loz is good at this stuff. Loz is in the last probably 2 years, Loz, you've dramatically changed, and your business is pretty successful up until that point. But I think in the last 2 years, the rapid growth Loz has had both in life and in business has been phenomenal. I think that's a great point about you. Like I've seen you can become more conscious with all that as well. Your business actions, your relationship actions, your money actions, everything, you know what I mean? So I think
they're all tied in, Like they're all one. Like if you're making good consciousness decisions everywhere, like all of a sudden it all starts falling into place.
All right, let's go into the triangle of happiness, Loz. So everyone, our listeners, all 12 of them, will know that.
Stop doing that.
So my feet are big. So we all know that our triangle to happiness is the 3 main key components: money, living, and health. So we'll get into those. Let's start money. The main thing that gets everyone attracted, my specialty, money. What is, looking back on yourself, what are some money lessons that you've learned, or some things that you could go back and talk to yourself about around that area? Good or bad, by the way.
Many. Yeah, so many. I mean, a good one was going and getting help from you because I definitely needed help.
Well done. The first person that said that.
I genuinely. I'm genuinely saying that. But yeah, oh my God, I've made so many mistakes. I think one thing definitely growing up, I don't really know, I don't know, I kind of was like, it's above my head. So I just won't worry about it. I'll just it's not a later problem with money. So I was like, oh, well, I don't know. So I'll just spend it, and I then got in a relationship and all the money was managed for me, which probably wasn't good either, because I was basically getting told you can spend this, you can't spend this. Here's, I really.
So you went from one scale to the other.
Yeah, literally. So then,
without the taught of why you can spend this and why you can't spend this, you need the lesson to understand it yourself.
Yeah, and I think just not saying that I was controlled, but being more involved in that process, I think is important, for couples to unless you don't want to do that. I know some women are yep, my man sorts it, that's good. But yeah, I definitely changed, my mindset changed. It was very much a lack mindset, because, it was always I didn't have the money, we don't have the money, that, I was always kind of not in and amongst that. And then I guess I'm very influenced by I was very influenced by relationships. I got into a relationship and, I was earning more. So I was kind of like stepping up and like doing things out of love, like supporting, and kind of maybe not making the best decisions that aligned with me and my children and my future, and was kind of dragging someone along who was just not on the same page. And I think, you know, if you are in a relationship, like, you've got to make sure you make smart decisions. And I definitely didn't protect myself financially through that, and coming out of that really bad breakup was left like with just behind, like, you know, years behind where I should have been and where I was, because of all that. So that was really hard, like dealing with a hard breakup, but also that like financial situation. I was like, damn, like I'm left with, it's not mine. And like, because I was like, I'll do it, I'll pay for it, like I'll, you know, put it on my interest free, like, what I was just, you know, doing things out of love. But we've got to kind of consider, and Ryan's really good at this now, like protecting me and making sure the decisions that I make, you know, are still, you know, I mean, in relationships, obviously we want to be together, but also like separate. And I think I definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way in that sense.
It's crazy
kind of just,
too. I learned this when I'm a little while after I met B. So any relationship I'd ever been in before, I'm very similar. I've made so many terrible decisions based off of relationships. I've given and given and given and you know, left myself with nothing on numerous occasions and walked away. Like I lost a $50,000 car at 23 and like a shitload of stuff where it didn't need to happen. And I blatantly was, you know, my fault on me. It's not even something they've done wrong. It was literally me being silly with my money. But I look back at that now, and it's a massive hindsight thing for me. Is I look back at that and I go, in all of those relationships, within 3 months, I knew I wasn't going to be that person forever.
I think
and I stayed.
Yeah, but you two are both the classic. You guys are so similar. And Loz, what you're saying, you are both earners, right? You both, and we talked about this on your podcast. Like, you have no trouble earning money. You need to find money, you'll find it, and that can be a trait. When you get someone who's not like that, a bit of a dead weight or a bit of a whatever, because you know you can earn it, you don't worry about it, but then you don't look at the long-term issues there. And I think it becomes a power struggle. And you were saying a lot with women, like some women just like their men to look after their money, which isn't bad. But I would always encourage, like, I think one of the lessons is it doesn't have to be financial plan. Like, it's a good idea, whatever. But one of the best parts with, you're lucky now in your current relationship, the power balance is pretty good, right? Because you're both self-sufficient, right? So, but in that other instance, there needs to be a mediator, like someone who, one person can control money, that's fine, but there needs to be an agreement, because the amount of times people have come into me like that and been like, and the husband's like, no, I'll earn the money, she'll spend what I tell her to spend. And you got to, like, there's a balance in the relationship of the things they do, and you got to try and find that and have that mediator in there to make sure that there's an understanding that whatever you're doing with your money is on, you know, even if it's separate, it's on the same path to succeed in each individual's right, because you're both putting as much into this relationship as possible, not just money. Yeah. I think that's where the triangle of happiness is really important, because some people will see money being the main focus of that relationship, not understanding what the other parts of the component the other person might be bringing.
Well, if it is the main focus of the relationship, it's probably a drama. Yeah?
That's right. And
like if money is the main focus of the relationship you're in, except a business relationship, then generally it's
and even if you're the one, like in your instance there, Loz, like if you're pushing out, you're paying for everything, that kind of thing, there needs to be a conversation and a sit down to be like, hang on, how is this looking? How is this benefiting us? And like Gemma and I went through a stage there where I was earning really good money, and then the money stopped, and I was still, no, I've got to do this. And she had to sit me down and go, babe, this isn't, like, what you're doing isn't good for us. Like, it's not helping us. And that fully changed our life and turned it around, because we sat down and had a conversation about that.
But that conversation's hard to have. Like, that conversation, unless you're
there's a lot of hard conversations.
You're a very open person, that conversation's hard to have, but it needs to be had. And I think a lot of people, what they do is they shy away from those confrontational. Like, that doesn't need to be a bad conversation either. That can be hey babe, look, you've done really well. You know what? You've taken a step back, but time to fucking pull your head in. Like, you can have that conversation. And when you are married, or when you are with your partner, those conversations ideally save your relationship. Yeah. Because if you don't have it, 2 years later down the track, you go, what? Remember when? And that's when it all blows up.
So what, if you're going back, just to finish off the money one, Loz, going back, if you could talk to yourself, what's some of the advice you would give yourself? Not like, that's obviously a point in your life that was pivoted and changed, and there's sort of the experience. What would you go back and talk to yourself? What do you wish you sort of maybe did a little bit differently, or
probably just took a little bit more control, like had more awareness of what I was doing. I'm a very I think you spoke about this the other day. My mindset's kind of like, well, I can only save this much, so like there's no point. Like if it's not a good amount, then like what's the fucking point? I won't do it. I'll just spend it. So I like, obviously you don't get anywhere with that. Like you're never going to get anywhere. So like actually maybe creating healthier habits with saving, even if it was small amounts, learning how to do that and have discipline with some form of savings or investment or something. Because I didn't really, I've never really been able to save up until this year. It's always just goes. I'm like, oh, this money, like I'll spend it. So,
don't talk to me.
He gets so grumpy at me. I can't but
I can't save, but I can buy jet skis.
Yeah, that's why I can't save, because I'm riding jet skis.
No, you can't save. You won't save.
No,
that's a lesson for people.
Listen,
stop saying you can't save. It's you won't save.
Yeah,
you won't.
Yeah, it's not that I can't save. And on numerous occasions throughout our lives, or my life, there have been large sums of money there that I've saved, but I've chosen to take life advantages and go to Vegas a couple of times with that. But no, we since I met Ryan, he really focused. He pretty much said to me, "You're a spender. It's not going to change.
Yeah,
just start spending money on shit that's going to make you money." So that's ultimately my goal. My biggest issue is I'll go all into something, and he sort of said that to me now. Like, we've got 9 franchises, and I'm going, all right, well, now I've spent that money to buy those franchises. They're not even really off the ground flying yet. Where's the next business? And he's like, just relax, just stop for a second and take it all in, and like, let's put some away and make some smart decisions. But that's
I'll sort him out. Don't worry. He's doing better since we started chatting already. So when I get him, when he gets to the stage you and me are at, Loz, he'll be killing it. Don't worry. We'll have a